But in a sense, most of this morning was warm-up to this afternoon's work. The techniques we will use would normally be worked with over a long time. As a teaching device, I'm showing you a process that you can adapt. A quick reminder of some of our boundaries for people who have arrived late too. Please only do things you feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
You can talk to whoever you want to about your own participation, but not about other people's. I'd like you to work with someone not your partner for a little bit, because you will go back to. So get into groups of about 4. Now, you may have played this game before, it's widely known. I shout out an object. As a small group, you become that object immediately. Ready? A ball of wool. Okay, a box of matches. A puppy. What I'm going to ask you to do in a short while is to use objects you have with you personally to create a picture of your life at the moment. If you like, the objects are telling the story of your life. I mark out the area I'm going to work in. If this were me, I'm going to do this very quickly, I'll give you longer. This represents my home, and it's important to me that I've worked hard to earn the money to own my home. This represents a pathway away from home to work, and at the moment that pathway is very busy. This represents my job at the university, and this represents my writing. And this makes me happy and excited. It gets me to travel places. So my picture at the moment is split. There is great sadness and real joy and energy. So, just as I've done, I want you to take objects that you possess. That one person will now take this work a bit further, and the other person will be in the role of the facilitator. I'm doing this because I want you to get practice. I will choose one of these objects to take into making the story. I want you to, 1, negotiate who's going to do the story and who's going to be the facilitator, and then 2, the person who's going to do the story decides which element they're going to take out. The partner, the facilitator, can maybe make suggestions, but she shouldn't be intrusive, and the decision is mine. Around the room, we have lots of objects from stories. I'd like you to choose 2 to help you make up a short story. Then she says, so, how does your story start? As quickly as I can, without thinking too much. Then all she does is to say, so what happens next? How does your story start? What happens next? What happens next? How does your story finish? This is my road. This is a golden apple. This is a key.
How does your story start?
The apple fell from a tree and squashed in the road.
What happens next?
A truck goes along the road and squashes the apple right into the road.
What happens next?
A key falls out of the door of the truck into the mud that the apple's left. The key feels very sad, and in the end, a pip, a seed from the apple, grows a shoot through the key. I was working completely without planning, and my unconscious gave me a different story each time. You take 3 pieces of paper, you put each of the objects down. Here I have road, here I have golden apple, here I have key. And then the facilitator asks me if I want to play the role of each of those briefly. Which would you like to go on first? Do you want to come and ask me 2 or 3 questions? I'll be the road.
언제부터 여기 있었어요?
From when?
From the story.
거기는 느낌이 어때요?
How do you feel to be there?
I feel a bit annoyed because this apple is squashed all over me.
또 언제 제일 기분이 좋아요?
I think I'll feel best when this kind of the seed has grown to a tree, because that would be nice. It'll give me some shade. Then the facilitator, after I've answered a couple of questions, says, "Would you like to be the key?"
무슨 열쇠예요?
I'm a big old key.
지금 기분은 어때요?
How do you feel now?
Okay, I quite like having a bit of kind of wood and greenery around me, and I'm glad to see that the squashed apple is actually growing something now.
앞으로 하고 싶은 일이 있다는 거 있을까요?
Well, I think as this tree grows, I will be going up with the tree. So I quite like the idea of being higher. The facilitator asks a couple of questions. Then the facilitator asks the storyteller to go and sit next to them. And she says, "I'd like you to give a message that would be helpful for each of those things."
이 세 가지 물건에게 당신이 해주고 싶은 말 있으면 해주시겠어요?
To the key, I hope you find the door you need to open. To the apple, I'm sorry you were squashed. I'm glad you were there for the apple to be squashed in. Step 1, you write on the 3 pieces of paper. Step 2, you sit with the facilitator. The facilitator asks you to take on the role of each of those to answer 2 questions. You de-roll, you go back and sit with the facilitator, and she asks you to give a message to each of the objects. Well, tomorrow there will be more time for you to think with me about what we did and why. Thank you for working so hard.